Well, hello and good afternoon from the U.S. East Coast. Hi, Michael. Long time no see.
Good morning.
And Randall as well.
Hey, David. Are you sorry? I'm coming down with a cold, so
Oh, that's a bad plan.
yeah,
I
it
don't
is.
recommend it.
I wasn't able to secure myself from a cold.
All right. So I see a 12 to 07 meeting. Do we have a different page for 2023? Or are we continuing?
We do not. We are just yeah.
All right. In that case, why don't I?
Yeah, go for it.
Let's see here. I know how to do copy paste. It's a special gift of mine. Unavailable to anyone else in the world.
Cool. Welcome everybody.
Remember when
22.
Apple iPhone could not copy paste?
Alrighty.
Man, given the whole party is just moving to a different call, we should just use the same link.
Well, no, that'll confuse folks.
I know, but it's the
Oh.
Hey,
Because then they would go on YouTube as one giant like 2-hour meeting, and
I know. Michael's not here. Okay, so fine. We lost. Does SOS stuff? Does SOS pay the maintainer as well, or just the person that fixed the thing?
like just the person that fixed the thing.
Well,
I mean, you as a maintainer, you are eligible for it too.
Right.
So
But like,
it pays whoever made the request.
yeah. I mean, the thing that and it doesn't seem like it's about like if you're fixing a security vulnerability in a project, it doesn't seem to cover that. It just covers salsa level, scorecard improvements, artifact signing, all-star installs, and security audits. It doesn't cover actually fixing security vulnerabilities.
No, that's in scope too.
I thought it was.
It's not listed in the improvement category on the form.
Oh, yeah, but if you go look at sos.dev, the website itself,
It doesn't really say that. It says it's a little more vague. It does not state that fixing a security vulnerability is in scope.
You know what? So here's the thing. SOS.dev is under Alpha Omega. So if it's not clear, we should make it clearer. If it's actually legitimately not in scope, that's news to me. It should not be out of scope.
Oh, okay. Because that's the reason I haven't applied for, like, before I joined. There's a reason that I didn't apply for some of these ones because I was like, it doesn't seem like it's in scope.
You can't apply for them now that you're an employee.
I know.
But I mean,
I'm not listed in the FAQ as someone that's out of scope.
Yeah, in the list of what security improvements qualify, one of the items is fixing issues discovered by OSS fuzz that exceeded disclosure timelines. So the intent was to go beyond only vulnerability fixes, not to exclude them necessarily. But I think the goal, the emphasis on beyond vulnerabilities, maybe we overdid that.
Yes.
Yeah. So when we chat again with Windsor, let's
And we'll have to
have that discussion.
We'll have to talk with the funders and stuff, but I don't think the intent was to prevent it. But here's the thing: the intent was, if you just want to harden some software as opposed to say fix a specific vulnerability. Most vulnerability projects, you have to point to the specific vulnerability. Like HackerOne, what is the vulnerability I'm fixing? And if the answer is, well, I'm just hardening it up to make it harder, the answer is no go, we stop.
Right.
And so the goal here was to to cover the areas that weren't covered by other things like getting a best practices badge and salsa and those sorts of things, which are not.
One of the ones that I have I've talked to Xavier about this a couple times. The way that the GitHub Security Lab bug bounty program is written, it encourages writing a CodeQL query to find widespread common security vulnerabilities, but it discourages you from going to the upstream maintainer of the project, like SnakeYAML, and trying to convince them to make the project secure by default.
What do you mean by discourage? Like it simply doesn't incent?
Sure, yeah. Well, the incentive system is set up such that you're going to get paid if you write a query that finds the vulnerability at scale.
Yeah.
And does not pay you if you actually spend the time to fix the root cause of the problem.
I think that's well, I think that's a matter of like product marketing getting involved on the GitHub side in that incentive structure, because they obviously want GitHub to be a better platform and CodeQL to have more queries and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yes, so that, like, again, this is like ties back to one of the like root problems that I have with static code analysis tools. Like, we spent all this time finding the vulnerability and like detecting it. Why can't we just fix the damn thing at the source?
It's well, yes.
So I'm with SOS.dev, for example, right? One of the things that, like, you know, that this is also missing too, I think, is it's not incentivizing the main, like, for example, with the SnakeYAML case, right? It's been a known vulnerability for 6 years, and I managed to convince this maintainer to fix it. I didn't fix it. I convinced him that it was worth fixing. And honestly, I think the maintainer should get paid for that.
Sure.
But, like, right? Like, I could tell him to apply, or I would want the better solution is I should, like, not sponsor, what's the word? Refer, or there's a word I'm missing here that's like, you know, put them up for consideration.
Yeah. I think everything is on the table. That, I mean, I don't see any reason why the maintainer of SnakeYAML shouldn't be paid through SOS Dev for like substantive security improvements to SnakeYAML, which benefits all of the users. That seems like an easy one. I also think that there's probably another higher level category of things for SOS.dev that we should think about, which is, you know, eradicating or addressing a zip, so kind of the work that you've done, like you know, to say, you know, here are some pervasive classes of vulnerability. If you can show meaningful improvement across the ecosystem for this, so if you do the automated pull request thing and get, you know, 1,000 projects to fix SQL injection in, you know, PHP, like that is enormously impactful and should be, reward should be available for that kind of, you know, more than whack-a-mole level work. Because I think you want to incent, this is similar to how GitHub incents CodeQL queries. We can incent whatever the implementation of those fixes are. I'm sorry, Randall, you have your hand up.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask if you guys were familiar with the Hunter program that
Yes.
yeah, they pay for open source.
Not very spectacularly, but yes, they do.
Not very spectacularly, but they do. Yeah.
And that is kind of the like, maybe it's just my personal like bias or feelings here, but I think it's kind of I might regret saying this, but kind of insulting to give someone like $50 or $100 to like do as a reward for like security work that has taken them, you know, years of experience and hours to days of work to do. It's kind of like I'll buy you a coffee, I'll buy you a beer. Like it's if this is truly important, it should be paid on that scale, and we shouldn't be looking at crowdsourcing-ish kind of platforms as a way to get labor cheap. I think it's kind of exploitative. Obviously, if people opt into it and they really want to do it and want to do it for that amount, like, sure. but it's something about it just tastes off to me.
For the record, they started with you get paid up to $2,500. I was almost sure that like Jonathan would have gotten one of those rewards because I've never seen one. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if it's a reasonable amount, then the argument goes away. It's just,
But I've never seen them pay out anything close to this. A couple $100 is what I usually see, tops.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so they're boosted projects. I'm seeing that they have payments up to $2,000, up to 1,900. Yeah, I've only seen like $200 payouts, but apparently they've got some boosted projects that have some really high payouts. I mean, my first year, I can't claim this anymore, but like the first year of the GitHub Security Lab bug bounty program, I was the highest paid researcher. I think they paid me like $10,000 across a bunch of different queries that I wrote. But you know that I haven't maintained that, but you know it and then they've also increased their payouts too a lot, which is nice. The GitHub Security Lab. I think the problem that I have with the GitHub Security Lab, because I've actually submitted queries that I've written, is that like I always feel like the work's not done, so I don't feel like worthy of submitting the pull request, because I'm like I only reported it to 4 projects, but I know I can get more, or like the query doesn't feel like it's sufficient yet, so I like, you know, I don't submit it to like try to get paid for the work that I did, which is my own like incompletionistness that I have. Yeah.
Fair.
Anyway, so topics for today. We could just go through the projects. Whatever you guys want to talk about is good with me. If we want to think about doing, you know, new year, we've got, you know, new sharpened pencils and a new trapper keeper. So if there are things that you would like to do in 2023 that we didn't really make any progress on in 2022, we could spitball ideas there. If there are things that we should be doing less of, like now's a good time for that kind of retrospective. But I knew we have the virtual maintainer summit, which should be coming up.
So about that, so we had difficulty working with the operations team because of the holiday season and everything.
Yeah.
So we plan to get our invitations out by December 15. As of date, they have not gone through. So yesterday we had a kind of emergency meeting as in what to do. So there were 3 groups of people who are important as participants. There's the moderators, like for example, I've spoken with David here as one of the moderators and so on. There's the panelists that we have a list and invited. These are small lists. So moderators, there's 4 or 5 panelists, there's 4 or 5, and then there's the 50-something participants, and the participants have never been informed, or so far they have not been informed. We have done like personal outreaches telling them that some information or some invitation is coming. It has not gone through. But anyway, yesterday, so we have resolved this, like Emily and I, we resolved this with the operations team. Now I think everything is on page, and it should go ahead smoothly. But the consequence of that is we are pushing it back by 1 month. Right now,
that sounds perfect. Yes.
Yeah, right now there are 2 dates, February 22nd and March 1. We are going to converge upon 1 date by tomorrow. That's the plan. And then update all the artifacts, like there's a pull request that you accepted or you merged that Ishel created. There's also the email drafts, etc. But all of these, and we will apologize to people like David and the others, like the small group of moderators and panelists who have accepted that January 25 date, and we'll just apologize and give them the next date. So February 22nd is the likely date that we are looking towards. And as far as the logjam that we had with the operations team, because they didn't understand whether this is official OpenSSF project or not, and so there's some confusion, and the holiday season complicated everything as well. So but things have been figured out.
Perfect. And, and the way I think I sent an email. So I got pinged in December just asking for clarity on, is this an official OpenSSF event, or is this an identifying security threats working group event? And personally, I don't understand like if that distinction is important or not, but it was it seemed important to the person I was having the conversation with. And I think where we landed was that if it is an identifying security threats working group event, then it is completely within our circle of authority to hold it and learn from it and iterate and do whatever we want. If it is a OpenSSF thing, then that is where TAC and governing board and more people need to be involved. And I think especially for this first one, it is better across the board to keep it as a identifying security threats thing. So I don't think that matters at all, because the landing page is under our working group. Just have identifying security threats in there somewhere, or like.
Yeah, I'm going to inform the CAT as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's right after we like converge upon the updated date. So I'm going to send an email. Eva requested me to do that, so I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, the other concern that was there was like, if this is an OpenSSF event or whatever, I mean, what is the budget allocated to that? And right now there's a trivial amount of money, if not nothing really involved, because it's a virtual event. So that has also been like propagated, and now I think that was a major concern, as in like, oh, if it's an event and a mini summit, like that sounds heavy for that matter. So where is the budget? Where is the approval, etc.? So that kind of got confused during the holiday. Yes,
I'm glad things got resolved. So awesome,
great, thanks.
cool. What else have we got? I updated the SSL certificate on metrics.openssf.org. I continue to hope that this will be the last time I need to do this, but I guess we don't have anybody from the metrics dashboard SIG here, but because they're meeting separately.
Have you heard about that's what of course you've heard about it. I'm not name blanking on it. That thing that generates SSL certificates automatically for you. Let's Encrypt. Thank you.
Oh, Let's Encrypt. Yeah, no. So it's a super uninteresting story of like technical debt. But no, for some reason certbot like doesn't stay running on the infrastructure. So every 4 months or so, or 3 or 4 months, I get an email saying my cert is about to expire. I need to like go in and log in and just hit certbot renew, and then it renews, and then I'm good for another 4 months. And
What?
at this point, it's silly, but it's infrastructure that works today that I don't want to mess with, because I want this just to evolve to the metrics dashboard SIG and the new thing. And like I'm frankly just terrified of it just breaking and then having to spend the weekend trying to rebuild it.
Yep.
But yeah, it does use Let's Encrypt, just not well. Okay, so metrics dashboard SIG is there. Let's see. Oh, I should have mentioned the OpenSSF annual report went out last week. So thank you all for I think before the holidays we put together the content for it, so it's there. So if you haven't seen that, please take a look. Obviously the Alpha Omega one went out 2 weeks before that. So that one's out there. They're both under openssf.org/blog.
Yeah, I thought both documents were excellent.
Cool, awesome, thanks. Yeah, so are there things that we should be working on in 2023? Like, I know that like identifying, like, other than changing the name of the working group to better reflect what we do, are there things we should be focusing on that or experimenting with or talking about or whatever that we haven't before?
I think there's always new things that we can do, but I would like to see even more emphasis on the whole dashboard, because I think the challenge is the people who need to be involved are already overwhelmed and pulled in multiple directions, and I speak as someone who is guilty as
Mhm.
charged.
Yep. Do you,
And
do you think though that are we adding more cooks to the kitchen? Like, do we need, would,
I think we just need to keep banging on the drum.
Okay.
You know, basically, it is important. I think we all acknowledge that, and I think every 2 weeks, just constantly saying, okay, what are we doing? How far have we gotten? What's next? What's left to do? And just kind of pressuring on that for now, I think is the key thing. Again, it's not because anybody's trying to cause trouble.
Yeah.
It's because we've got really busy people, and it's so easy to get distracted by the current emergency,
Mhm.
whatever that is.
Yep. So this meeting is the SIG risk dash, or the risk dashboard SIG meeting that next time is happening on the 13th. So I guess what I would suggest is, attend if it's
Right.
interesting to you, stay involved, push on it, don't be a fly on the wall, be an active contributor. But I think this is important work that
Yep, and I do want to quickly acknowledge, because of a conflict, I expect I'm going to miss the 13th, but I will be back the next one after that with the 27th.
Cool.
So I'm looking forward to getting that moving forward.
Cool. Something came up on the previous call, and it just got me thinking. So there's a website out there called Is End of Life, or Randall, you have your hand up while I'm looking for that.
I have gotten feedback in the past that more like documentation examples of the alpha omega tooling in action would be nice. So I don't know if that would be something nice to see in 2023.
Could you be so let me write this down so that way I don't forget or misremember or something. Can't even find the thing. Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna try to write this in the notes. So tooling examples of like example kind of walk through stuff of using the AO
Correct.
tools against the thing. Okay.
Where do they fit? Like, do we have like a reference pipeline? That's been a question that I've had in the past.
Yeah.
Like, where does it fit in a pipeline? What other tools does it work with? Are there any like YouTube examples, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Perfect.
It's expired.
Got it. Yeah, I doing some like video walkthroughs and better getting started has been on the list. So yeah, we should definitely do that.
Because usually my conversations with people go, "Oh, you're an OpenSSF. Oh, they have the alpha omega people, and don't they offer tooling? Yeah, they do offer tooling, but how do you use it? Like, where does it fit? Is this like project discovery, or like what do you guys do?" And that's usually where it goes.
That's great. Yeah, that's perfect feedback. Yes, 100%. We should do that.
Because I know everyone's talking about project discovery, at least.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I want to so drawing the circle around what is the alpha omega tooling and what is it not, so that way, because it doesn't really do discovery. Like it would really, but having, and this is more of an OpenSSF thing, which is totally this working group. Well, maybe not this working group, but it's totally a working group. Like, what is the reference? Like, is there a reference pipeline of like, here's the 5 things you do. If your GitHub project, go here, click this, enable Dependabot, enable security, whatever. There's like a secondary box, I think, for Dependabot. For CodeQL, if you're one of these types of projects, go here. Here are some gotchas you might need to be aware of. Like that kind of walkthrough where in a 10-minute or 15-minute YouTube video, you can go from nothing to a hello worldish application with some dependencies getting scanned and dependable alerts, et cetera, et cetera.
And some feedback from Mark from OWASP, because I don't know if you guys know Mark, I'm sure some of you do, but he found out everyone always tries to put everything into like some form of like pipeline. So that was one of the things that they had to deal with at OWASP, is like it's a big deal for them, is how does it all work together? Because anything they put out, people were trying to find like a pathway or like a tool kit of some sort. So yeah.
Okay, so everything, effectively what we would want to distribute is either the actions available through the GitHub Marketplace or instructions on setting up your pipeline to leverage existing workflows.
Correct.
Yeah, totally agree. Cool. I can't find this. I always find this. So there's a website that's like isendoflife.net or org or something. And you type in Python, it says, yep, Python 2 is end of life, Python 3.x is supported until this date. And I'm wondering if it would be, maybe this is a terrible idea. So we'll just talk and then we'll decide later that it's terrible. But I wonder if having something like this where you can, you start out and you just get a box. It's like, give me your package or URL or whatever. And it'll go out and say, okay, this thing hasn't had an update in 14 years. And there's some issues that, people are asking, is this EOL? And the maintainer says, yep. Or it has a security insights tag that says end of life or archived or whatever. Where it just does one thing, but it does that one thing well. And it is discovering is end of life, and it does it proactively against a project as opposed to having the project need to do it for themselves. As I'm thinking about this, maybe this is just stuff that Scorecard has already with the actively maintained. No, maybe not, because actively maintained is slightly different than EOL. Slightly. I don't know, I may have just talked myself into a circle there. I guess for me, I would love a website that I could just go to and type like, hey, is zlib still being maintained? Yep. Had last update 3 months ago, and whatever.
Yeah, which one?
I do +1 the idea, Michael, but I think I think there are reasons why it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I don't know what those reasons are, and I'm sure if we get into the details, I'm sure one of them is like, but it's only been a year. It's not really unmaintained.
Yeah. Yep.
And then there's people that's like, I don't do maintenance. I do lazy maintenance or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
In other words, I wait until Rome is on fire until I actually do something.
And that's when you pull out the violin.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there are reasons why it doesn't exist, but I do think it would be helpful. I think, but like, it's really interesting because different packaging teams, from my point of view, have different like rules as far as what is unmaintained. But I know that year mark starts to push it, and that's a lot of people like to use the year mark, and you can't use the year mark. It has to be like 3 years.
Right. Yep. I found this is endoflife.date.
Okay.
And there's another one, endoflife.software, I think, but it's against, I mean, it's obviously a curated, or at least it looks to be curated thing, which is they have a lot of packages there, but they're all big packages. They're not, I don't think zlib is there.
Some of that is what Scorecard is also trying to pay attention to a certain degree.
Yeah, and I guess as Scorecard, I know Scorecard changed it. Did Scorecard's cron job? Did they turn up the cron job? I thought I thought something happened recently where scorecard was no longer centrally running against everything. And they were relying on the actions themselves to be running, and I'm just
I don't know the latest. I
okay.
apologize. I've got this jump to
That's all good.
another event, but Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
And a busy 2023. So everyone lace up your track shoes.
Yes, it's going to be a wild ride.
I have another question. I don't know if it's necessarily this working group, but I feel like we should be more involved with a lot of what people are calling like the next generation packaging formats, because I feel like a lot of it is going in that direction ever since Steam Deck came out. And the reason why I think that's important is because you get into this like homebrew ideology where people don't understand that homebrew has nothing to do with security. But in their point of view, homebrew has everything to do with security. And if it's not a secure package, then why are you guys carrying a not secure package? Like, it's your fault.
What do you mean by next generation packaging?
Flat pack, snaps. That's what they're calling next generation packaging, universal packaging.
Okay, well,
I mean,
because there is a heavy security argument there, and I don't know if it's correct. It doesn't sound correct to me, but
I mean,
the adoption is there.
Yeah, I mean, there have been some efforts to make Snappack and Flatpak so that they have more limited access than total access to the data in the account. Whether or not they actually achieve that is, I haven't seen anybody look into it and come away happy.
But that's there's a lot of reasons for that, because I'm trying to figure that one out right now too. I'm trying to figure out flat packs, and yeah, like there are reasons for that. Like there's a lot of people that just choose the wrong runtime. Just saying.
Yeah, I think we're probably some years out from consolidation. I think we're still in the fan out with different ideas. So like the Node.js is experimenting with permissions. So the idea is that you can depend on left pad, but left pad should not have access to your file system. So it should be able to declare, and essentially your retrofitted capabilities model into these ecosystems. I think I feel right now this second I feel like OS level packages and application level packages are different enough that the perfect solution for one may be the completely wrong solution for the other. I might be convinced otherwise.
Let me tell you what surprised me, Michael, is apparently Nmap now has a flat pack.
Okay, but so I should know the answer to this, but like, what is a flat pack like conceptually? Is it a container thing, or is it just a packaging of?
It uses bubble wrap. It is basically using bubble wrap. Bubble wrap is like CH root, but it's like a rewritten CH root on steroids.
Yeah, think a system level package. I would say flat pack and so on. The idea is it's a whole lot more like containers. Basically you have the entire application within a single image, and there is some attempt. This is the why I'm and if you can't hear me hedging, you're not listening. But there is some attempt at some claims that it might have some restrictions on the security accesses it gets versus just I run as an application. It has all the privileges of the user.
Got it. Okay, so conceptually extending the concept of flat pack into a place where, let's say, interpreted scripts are dynamically run in their own bubble.
Right.
Okay. I mean,
a quick couple notes historically, and Michael, I think you're already familiar with this, but I don't know who knows what on the past. I mean, historically, for example, various systems have tried to include this at the language application level. In Java, there's something called the security manager. Python used to attempt to have this sort of thing. in general, things haven't worked out very well. For the most part, language level folks have abandoned ship. It's really, really hard to do it correctly. They generally try to implement it without hardware support, and trying to do it without hardware support, while the researchers will tell you it's theoretically possible, and they're correct. But theoretically possible does not make it actually practical in any useful way.
Yep.
And so, the idea of trying to have this kind of isolation, I think, is good. But I'll also observe that in a lot of package managers, especially in the ecosystems, we can't even get the ecosystems to stop running arbitrary code on package install. I don't want to call out the package repos working group has been analyzing the differences between package managers. It's awesome. I'm very, very proud of some of the analysis that they've done, but several package managers have said we're not even going to prevent that. Never mind any serious security limitations. They want to run arbitrary code on install time, and that's something that most of the system package managers increasingly abandoned years ago because of the danger of it. So if you can't even get that,
is that true? So that's interesting. So I was like literally last night doing like experimenting with some like Ubuntu installs, and you notice like a whole bunch of like random pop-ups of like, hey, you need to configure your time zone now. So that's like arbitrary code. I'm sure that it's running.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I don't know that the OS hasn't really solved this.
OS may be a bad example there.
Well, a lot of that system D. System D requires your time zone, because if not, it'll default to UTC. Not to mention, to create a user, it needs a default time zone, because if not, home deal bug out.
But the idea is that there's no there still isn't a great your system is like an install is not just a bring a box in and put it in the room.
Remember we were talking about sane defaults? Like, you see, this is the thing. Like, if you're gonna talk, like, if you really want like sane defaults, like, I guess in some ways system D is like your only option. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, and you see, even there you have a lot of like pushback, because you do have like entire distros that are built on the fact that they don't use system D. And then in those cases, all sane defaults are off the table.
Yeah. So let me be specific. So I shouldn't have said the system, because they obviously can execute. However, the system folks will tell you, the system package managers, generally you can't just, it isn't just load in and go. There's separate, there's the group who creates the software is separate from the person or group who does the package managing. And at least there's the opportunity for review, whereas most of the language level repos, it really is anybody can upload. I mean, if you know how to create a package, you can install it into there. There's no separate review.
It's anonymous FTP.
Yeah, that's right. It's anonymous FTP, download and go. It's a little better. It's anonymous FTP with secure loading. So the connection is encrypted and authenticated. So
it's anonymous FTPS.
That's right. It's HTTPS. There may be malicious code, but you're guaranteed to get the malicious code provided by
the right malicious code.
Exactly. But let me be specific, because there's no grand secrets. Rust, Ruby, and Gradle. Currently, you can whenever you install code, it'll run arbitrary code, and there's no plan for that to change.
Gradle depends upon where you're putting it. If you're putting it in your plugins, then yes. If you're putting it into your dependencies, then
no. But no. When you do a straight install, my understanding is that it can run arbitrary code, and there's reason for that. It's so that, for example, you can have, say, it depends on a C library, and so it can call the compiler and do all the other stuff it needs to do.
And NuGet and NPM do the same thing, and Python installation is running a setup.py file. Like,
Well, so that's Python's a little more complicated because there's multiple Python. Python's always complicated when we have these discussions, but yes.
yeah. Um,
Yeah, so I don't have a simple solution
Yeah.
for you. I'm acknowledging the challenges of the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
I do think that for a lot of cases, it would be, I specifically in the build time, just to beat this to death. I think in a lot of cases, most packages don't actually need that capability, or if they do, what they actually need to do is a very short list that you could whitelist. Because most of the time it's, hey, either I do nothing, I just install files, or I copy them to particular locations, or I invoke a compiler where presumably I trust the compiler. And so I'm suspecting that there's ways to reduce the privileges granted to packages on install time. Now, whether or not that's worth the squeeze, obviously people differ on that point.
I mean, even something simple like, so the way that this works with Chocolatey, I believe, and I don't know if this is, but it's like, hey, I'm going to run this arbitrary script. Either click here to view or click yes to do you approve, kind of thing. If I was, npm install leftpad and said, hey, you're going to run this script that does a, curl bash to burp collaborator. Do you want to run this?
Yeah,
I might still say yes, just to get the thing installed. But I mean, like, I wonder if someone did an analysis of all the packages in the ecosystem, like how many of them have let's just say, pre-allowed, like completely safe, things. And how many of them have other things, and if you just warn for the other things, if that would be disruptive enough, or npm install -- warn me if I'm running, or well, actually no, npm does have a npm install no scripts. I wonder if that's the right model.
And I'm pretty sure DNF does too, and I suspect that app does also.
Okay, so if you wanted to run it, so in that case,
yeah, but the problem with that is that you are now depending on a user to do something not the default, and they have no way to know what damage will happen when they do things the wrong way, which means basically no one's going to do that because you have you generally have no way, unless you download the scripts and examine them yourself and figure it all out. Nobody's gonna do that.
But David, correct me if I'm wrong. Most distros, like in most systems, recommend you use whatever your distro feels is the best option.
I'm not sure how to respond to that.
So let me explain. So like the way Debian sets up Node and the way that Node sets up Node is two different things.
Right.
But now, if you ask Debian, they would be like, well, are you on Debian? Then yes, then I use Debian's installation. But if you ask Node, they'd be like, no, don't use Debian's installation. They know nothing about Node. Use our installation. So
I think it'd be more like if I'm installing a Python, so if I'm installing Python requests, do I do apt-get install Python 3- requests, or do I set up a virtual environment and do the pip install virtual? And I think most people do the pip install thing rather than try to leverage the OS level package, because that's a can of conflicts.
Right. The fundamental problem, and this has been going on for years, I don't see any other solution, is that the OS, the folks who are doing the system level package installs, they're typically depending on a separate package manager, a person, to create the packages. That becomes a bottleneck. So they always have a very small subset of the larger ecosystems packaging, and they're often behind. As a result, you really, it doesn't take long at all before a lot of people assume that you're going to use package foo version 7.3 and the system level package is 1.2 and nothing else works. So you quickly abandon the system level packaging. And so I think what was happened with all the system level is that they installed a small set. And if you want a larger set or a packages in a larger set, you do, Michael, exactly what you suggested. You install the language level ones.
Now, if I may, Michael, a good example would be like node version managers, because you can install those, and I'm going to use Homebrew as an example here. You can install them via Homebrew, and some of them you can just install them via NPM. Now, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is how they work is different, though.
Right. So I'm more of a Python than Node. I'm imagining that NVM is similar to
Correct.
like Python virtual.
Correct.
Okay. So in that case, yeah. So one would be like installed in a more globally accessible place for the OS. The other one is like just this directory, and you have to like do a magical incantation in order to like root into it, kind of.
So like ASDF, which is a popular node one, which is one I'm familiar with, you could just install it locally in the project directory and use it that way. Or you could use it like install it through Homebrew, and then you would have it like system level where it recognizes what your system node is. And that way you could keep your system node clean, because that's what Apple would want you to do. And you use like a local version for your projects.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think it just depends. I think it depends on the developer. I think it depends on the end user. I think it also depends on the operating system they're using, because a lot of Mac people will depend on Homebrew, like staff and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it depends a lot on like what your point of view is. But everything David said is absolutely true. But on the flip side of that, there are people that do, as I said, they expect us not to upload, because like as packagers, we won't upload every version if we find versions with problems with it. So some people depend on that too. It's not a security thing. It's just sometimes they release bad versions we can't build for one reason or the other.
Yep. And I think that that's totally okay for, this kind of goes back to like the walled garden versus anonymous FTP, and where different, every distro and ecosystem and registry can choose where they want to live on that spectrum of like, what assurances do we provide to our customers? Like under what conditions, like, are we going to host malware? Are we going to host project with critical vulnerabilities? Are we going to warn you? Are we going to say nothing? Like,
correct.
And all options are okay. I think as an industry, it's hard because there are some who would argue that we need to move more to the walled garden approach, where the consumer has more assurance as to the security quality of the thing, and there's a whole lot of arguments that would destroy innovation and just kind of destroy the world, and that we should be careful about moving in that direction. And I don't know what the right answer is.
Well, if I may, the reason that I was bringing up the next generation packaging was because I'm seeing a lot of companies like use Steam Deck as like an example of what you should do if you want to leverage Linux and move forward. And that's a flat pack system. That is basically just a bunch of flat packs installed on like GNOME Shell on System D. Like, I rebuilt it over the holiday weekend and installed it in a Steam Deck. It wasn't that hard to reverse engineer. So, but it's a very simple concept. And no, it doesn't do everything correctly, and it has a lot of problems. Like the flat packs themselves do have problems, but I mean, if they actually figured it out, it would. I mean, it is a good example of what the future of Linux might look like.
But so just to get to the benefit for the end user of Flatpak over, normal or previous methods, is that by installing a Flatpak, the rest of the OS is insulated from your you less impact on the overall OS or other.
Correct. You literally only need GNOME shell. That's all you, or even KDE, because KDE, like, but you just need the shells and that's it. Like, you don't need, like, everything else can be installed via Flatpak. You don't need extensions. Now, let me say this, for as much as I tout Flatpak, I think it's interesting. Did I end up using it? No, I went back to Firetail. But but theoretically, for an end user who wants to turn on a computer and send an email and not be like, why is Evolution sending me a bunch of errors? Then yes, it is a nice solution for that. And like, if you're going to use it to install games or just a bunch of like end user type things, I mean, it has like a lot of foundation, because, you know, it does try to make an effort. Is it perfect? No, but I mean, it's hard to argue with Fedora not being one of the nicest Linux systems out there. When you talk about parent distros, yeah, I think they kind of have us beat on that one. I mean, I'm in one, so yeah.
I've been super happy with Manjaro, which started a couple months ago. It just works like wonderfully well, and
correct me if I'm wrong, that I think that Manjaro does use Flatpaks, because a lot of people
have the option
in that direction.
Yeah. You know, although it's interesting because so now putting on a consumer hat, like when I install a package, I have from two different options, Core or Flatpak, which is I often have, like, there are often like two available versions of it.
Right.
I will always instinctively go to Core because I, quote, trust Manjaro to police their ecosystem more than Flatpak, who I don't know who created the Flatpak. And
Red Hat, it's a Red Hat thing.
It's all red. Okay, so maybe I should trust Flatpak just the same. But like, but I thought Flatpak, but isn't Flatpak a, like, I can think of it like a zip file? Couldn't a Flatpak come from like
it's free desktop, which is technically Red Hat.
Well, yeah, I think the thing is for Flatpak, and the reason we're talking about this here is the arguments are basically the same as containers. You're including all the dependencies within the image. That means that the good news is you know that it works. The bad news is if you want to make sure it doesn't have vulnerabilities, you need to make sure that they're updating all the components within the Flatpak.
So let me say
everybody's
this,
always updating the Flatpak. Heck no.
Well, let me say this, David. So they do use a virtualized system. So what Flatpak will do is they kind of create like this virtualized operating system that actually does share. So like all of the Flatpaks will share this like virtualized file system they have in the background. So like if you install FFmpeg full Flatpak, then all the browsers will be able to use FFmpeg and use hardware acceleration. So to some degree, they do. It's more of like it's not that every single thing has like the dependencies packaged into it. It's more of a matter of like all the modules and all the things get shared so that they're separated, and they could be separated at a system level or at a user level. And yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, that's not how I understood that.
The documentation is very hard to understand. Okay. And it took me understanding how to enable hardware acceleration on Firefox to understand, well, if you install FFmpeg full, then all your browsers can use it. So yeah, so like that's the way it works. It's in, if you go to their Flatpak Discord, they in the forums, it's in the tutorial section.
Okay.
Discourse, not Discord, discourse. But yeah, but it isn't. The reason I say this is because, in all honesty, Michael, in my point of view, and David, like, if Flatpak were to succeed and they were to do things correctly, and they do actually get their vision of creating an app store, from an end, I don't think it's going to fit everybody's, it's going to float everybody's boat. But I think that from like an end user level, that might be a big way of protecting most users. Because if things go in that direction, I'm not saying they will, but Steam Deck has a lot of money behind it. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on like who are the end users. Like for non-developers, Flatpak seems like a resilience thing as much as anything else, and the idea of Steam Deck like it totally makes sense in that context. For developers, I think it has to move up to the application level in some way. Otherwise you're just running your application in a container anyway. But if Flatpak were applied to individual dependencies within an app stack, I think that's super interesting and might make it so that Node and Python and like all the arguments we've had in the past about security manager and CAS and all this other kind of failed-ish technologies, maybe that's a solution there where you just say that here are your interfaces between modules and those things are open but everything else is closed, and you've kind of said like microservices v2.
Let me also say this. There is a program called Flat Seal, which is kind of funny, but someone made a GUI where you could literally just control the entire Flatpak from there. So this is also where Flatpak in the last like 3 or 4 months at Gentoo has become all the rage, because now you could do whatever you want with your Flatpaks. You can get into the environment. You could give it more paths. I mean, you can even turn the sandbox off if you want to.
Okay.
So yeah, it's actually, I just thought that from a security perspective, it's interesting to see what drives adoption.
I am adding Flatpak to the top of my list of things to learn more
and
about.
Flat Seal. Yeah, Flat Seal is part of it. That is part of the why all the kids are using Flatpak, and they all want Flatpak now because they all want to build the Steam Deck on their computer. And and Flat Seal that's how you break out of the Steam Deck is Flat Seal.
Got it.
Because you can install more Flatpaks into the Steam Deck, and you can install Flat Seal as a Flatpak to screw all your other Flatpaks up.
Got it. Okay.
Did I mention attempts and I'm not so sure? And
yeah.
Cool. We're about out of time. Is there anything else that anyone would like to talk about before we adjourn? Awesome. Well, thank you all very much. It's a great conversation. Really enjoy it every other week. So I'll see you all in 2 weeks. Enjoy the beginning of 2023. Stay happy and healthy. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.